Hey, I'm your co-host Suvir, and today I am joined by Jacob Uwe.
What's
We'll be
good?
discussing performativeness.
Yeah, so for starters, we gotta ask ourselves, what's the question actually? The question is this. When does being performative stop being performative? Now, that might seem a little bit weird of a question to ask, but what I really mean is, when does faking something stop being faking something, right?
So you're alluding to the century-old question, "Fake it till you make it," or the statement.
Yeah, fake it till you make it.
So,
Because here's the thing I've been noticing a lot around not only Loyola campus, but like on social media, like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, etc. There's a lot of fake people out there, right? I see, it's a little bit dated, but it's a pretty good example. Kids with their Labubus or the crop tops or the matcha bag. You get the gist, right? Wear
I
headphones and
understand
all
it.
that. Is that a lifestyle? When you adopt that lifestyle, are you truly living it or are you merely imitating it?
Mm. I think the filtration that goes through, like how people filter out their lives before posting them on social media, which makes sense because you won't act the same way around your family and people you
Mm.
feel like you can be vulnerable in front of the whole world. So there's bound to be some kind of filtration and some kind of that they're not showing their genuine lives out there. And so you can't blame people for that. But I feel like when you see the individual, or sorry, when you see uh, a lot of people presenting themselves as something, and so that do you feel like people are starting to? What I'm basically saying is, do you feel like people are starting to imitate other people's reflections of themselves?
Trying to be what people think that they are.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's true. I feel like there's such simple phrases that we say in life that are kind of seem menial in the sense that's like, oh, it's a one-off phrase, like, oh, you're so smart, or you're so kind, or you're so funny, right?
I'm not following.
Basically, we are so attached to these labels that people put on us
Mm.
because they are reflective of who we are as a person, right? These statements affirm our own understanding of ourselves and maybe reveal something more about who we believe ourselves to be. Because the way that you believe yourself to be and the way that you actually are two different things, right? You see, sometimes people call themselves, I don't know, let's say someone's kind, right? But how do you be kind? Are you kind because you say you are, or are you kind because you do something that is considered to be kind?
So
Right?
so this is the performativeness that you're
Yes,
talking
that's
about.
the performativeness. Is it a mentality or is it a lifestyle? Is it something you do unconsciously or something you think about doing? Because that begs the question: if you think about doing something, then that means you never had the actual innate ability or attribute of that thing, right? Like, let's say this.
Hmm.
Let's say you are a hunter, right? You were a hunter who was during the hunter-gatherer eras of, I don't know, the Americas, right? You're a Native American. And you were one who hunted through, bow and arrow, spear, chopping down trees, right? You're a hunter. But no one called you a hunter. Are you still a hunter?
So I mean, but you're saying that defining labels define somebody. I mean, okay, so but what you're saying is you're using language as an ordering force. You're using language to define certain things, and you're saying that outside of the boundaries of language, something cannot exist.
To a degree, yes, because that is how we ascribe meanings to words or to people. But is manhood, or let's just call this the identity about yourself, is that independent or dependent on language?
Hold on, look. So you're talking about manhood right now. We're still on the top. So are you talking about certain pressures that people feel to live up to
No,
on
no,
social
no. I'm talking
media?
about identity.
Okay, so we're
Yeah,
we're on the
more
topic
broad,
of identity because of
performative.
sorry, let's tie back to social media though. So we're talking about identity in the sense that people are faking their identities on social media, or what are you claiming
I'm
exactly?
saying that people are faking who they are, right? I believe that there is something inherited about ourselves that we have that is present throughout childhood, but as we later grow up in life, we later adapt to our environment, and because of that, our own sense of, let's just call it the childhood self,
Hmm.
gets obscured.
Okay, that makes so you're saying that there's an unnatural influence that's shaping our growth in life because people are only select and so what it is really people are using social media as a platform to perpetuate their own beliefs, what they think the world should see people as.
Yeah.
People should what the world should see role models as, right? Because if you portray yourself on social media, it's likely in the best image of yourself.
Yeah. And so my real question though is that valid? To live a lie, to live something that goes against who you were originally as a child? Or are you valid in this new label or persona?
So do you become what? Well, I think the simple answer, I mean, I would say is that, yeah, you do become what you do become what you, what you embody. It's like that poster, every single time I'm taking a final exam, if I'm blanking out for a second, I'll look around and see the posters on the wall. And I always see in some teacher's room that poster where it says your thoughts become your words, or something, and your
Yeah,
words
right.
become your
Yeah, yeah,
actions
yeah.
and your actions become. So is that what you're saying? Like, now that because of the type of media we're consuming, it's us becoming that?
Yeah,
Right. So
our original self has become obscured. We have new cases. Social media has been increasing the rate of mental disorders and like other like effects like depression and all this other stuff. And because of that, it's just proof that we are being manipulated by this, well, digital world,
but
that we are being formed by the language and orders of the people on social media.
but adaptation in that sense is necessary. Like, we can't
Yeah.
dodge that, I mean,
The real question, though, is what do you do? Do you preserve it? Do you live in the residual mind of your own identity? Or do you become emergent? Do you be the thing that they say you are? Is that valid?
mm. Well, I don't think it's correct to say what they say you are,
Mm.
more so what they say they are, and what slowly I think a good analogy I can think of for this is when ChatGPT started using the word delve more often, because
Hmm.
I can't remember where it is, where their servers are located, but where they're training, the people who
Yeah.
train the models are located. But the people in that region usually use the word delve more on average than most English speaking people. And then slowly, after ChatGPT started using the word delve, people who were subconsciously being manipulated by ChatGPT's word usage began to use the word delve.
Yeah.
So what happened is basically fake news, or sorry, fake reality, artificial reality turned into
Real
reality.
reality. Yeah.
So that I think that is probably the best analogy actually for that. I mean, that
So that's interesting, though, because think about it. Is it good to be performative? Right? Or is it just to be something you're not? Because think about it. If you're performative, right? For starters, you're being something that you want to be, right?
Mhm.
It's the whole thing about Loyola. Be the man who you want to be. When when you graduate this school, you develop your own pure personalis, right? The whole self, your body, your mind, your ability to handle emotions and ethics, all that stuff. Isn't what we're doing a little bit performative inherently?
I think so. I think you can't deny the fact that there will always be a certain performative element because of the human need for adaptation.
Mm.
The humans being, arguably the most superior species on the planet. I don't think
Yeah. With
we really
consciousness,
need to
yeah.
argue that, but uh, you know, in most ways, I I think that stems a lot from our ability to adapt, and when we need to adapt, we follow, like, so we're looking at social media, for example. This is something that's been integrated into society heavily,
Mhm.
and so we're adapting to those new cultures.
Okay. So it's almost like a bunch of different world points or like truth candidates you just kind of mix into this little hodgepodge of just your brain, right?
Hmm.
So here's a question I have to ask you, right? Is it fine to just be someone you're not, right? I feel like sometimes it can be, right?
Yeah.
I feel like this is what this kind of conversation is steering towards. It's just adaptation. But that's not performativeness anymore, right? That's just finding who you are as a person. Because think about it, right? Performativeness is doing something you're not. Even if you initially were performative in this goal of this obtaining of this persona online, if it was truly performative, you would never stick to it fully, right? And what I'm thinking of is of a person who once tried to adopt the ideals of, let's say in this case, someone who likes Tyler the Creator or some other niche hip hop artist or whatever.
Well, Tyler the Creator's a niche.
Okay, no, you get the gist, like indie rock type stuff, you know?
Okay.
If they were indoctrinated into that thought, if they saw the people who related to them, performative or not, and found a community, should we really judge that, even if they are originally being performative?
I think a good way to explain this is Alan Moore, who says that modern advertisers use the shamanistic tradition as in a perverted form, right?
Yeah.
They use a lot of the techniques that to manipulate people's consciousness, get them to like different forms, different usage of semiotics and different uses of language and semiotics for that end. But it's an end that doesn't necessarily benefit the individual like the original shamanistic tradition did.
Yeah.
It instead gets people to buy your product. It's something that has perhaps
Ignoble,
immoral, right?
immoral,
Is that
immoral, yeah.
immoral purpose, right? But with with a
The guys of the
morally
game,
just
yeah.
means, so the means aren't necessarily terrible. It's not that social media is the reason for this. It's what's on social media that's the reason for this, right?
That makes sense. It's just, I feel like man is currently with us, right? Juniors, we're, at least for our personal experience, going through a lot of stuff when it comes to like college and like self-actualization, who I want to be and what job I want to be, right? Sometimes it's good to be a bit performative in who you are and affirm to those ideals that people ascribe to you. You're very quirky, you're very intelligent, philosophical, rhetorically sound, or whatever, right? All those titles we grasp upon, all of those performances we put on in light of those things to try to uphold that image of ourselves is dependent on the way you react to it, a good thing, right? It's a bad thing if it comes to a point where you're like, oh, I gotta be like this again, or I gotta be the smart kid, or I gotta be the TA. There's something about us that I do not cannot comprehend about our original attitude, right? I feel like man has something in them when they're born that forces them to act or think a certain way, right? Because that's natural. That's why we have things like those social titles we have, like INFP or all that stuff, right?
Oh, no, I don't know. Would you be able to explain what INFP is?
Yeah. Just so you all know, those titles are related to like an acronym. So INFP, that's someone who is introverted,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that's a
Personality
the
type.
personality test, those stuff,
Okay.
right? Yeah. So we ascribe these like elements to ourselves because we ourselves are, I guess, inheritors of those traits.
I mean, are you saying that boxing ourselves into a category is being performative?
No, I'm saying that trying to be what we're not truly are is performative, right? But that begs the question of who are you as a person? And that's something that's super internal. That's something super personal. I cannot dictate a formula or a logical reasoning of thought because it's something not based in logic. It's something completely emotional.
It's something that requires a lot of thorough introspection.
In ethics, it's something philosophical.
It's not. Sorry. So, sorry. What was the last question I asked? Do you remember? Okay, I just remembered. So, is boxing yourself? So I asked earlier, are you saying that boxing yourself in is being performative? And you said no. But are you saying that that when you box yourself in, that's like a different? I mean, but because what you said afterwards kind of did sound like you were saying yes. You were saying that boxing yourself in is a form of altering your personality forcefully while trying to fit into a certain standard, which is what performativeness is, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, but that's the real question, though. I mean, this is going to be the biggest thing here. Is the words of other people valid in their assumption of who you are as a human being? That's the question I'm asking. I know I said that originally people do rely on that, but that doesn't mean that it's inherently correct, right? I mean, when you think about it, people don't truly know you, right? Because it's literally impossible. You're a baby, and well, you're a baby. It's like there's like not a way to digitally go in their consciousness and look at their life.
You're saying nobody can truly know you and understand what your mind.
All they can do is get a grasp of who you are from small interactions. And there's this concept called a single side story. The first impression that you make on a person is therefore the almost like the formula for their thought, right? Let's say someone is crazy and someone is illogical. When that guy talks something that sounds very smart or is objectively very intelligent,
right? You put it through that filter.
Yeah, you're not gonna listen to him, you know, because it's a guy who was on the streets and he is, you know, I don't know, doing some crazy shenanigans, right? And the same thing is doing with intelligent people. If someone thinks you're intelligent and you say some stuff you kind of pull it out of nowhere, and be like, oh wow, good job, you know what I'm saying? It's like a heel clapping, you know. So that's what I'm stating. Performativeness is not performative in the outer sense, but in the inner sense. It's something that you only know as to be performative. It's something that you yourself know is not truly you.
So you're challenging the widely accepted, you know, definition of performativeness, which is something, or not, you know, I haven't checked the denotation of the word performativeness, but I know that on social media there is a certain understanding that being performative is about outwardly expressing, you know, certain social standards and social norms that aren't necessarily intrusive, right? Non-intrusive, sorry.
That's not like synonymous with who you are as a person.
Yeah.
So that's true, right? But I mean, the real question though
intrinsic,
is...
sorry.
Intrinsic.
Intrinsic, that's the word.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. So I think what this discussion really entails to is, to what degree are you really you, right? To what degree do you look at yourself in the mirror every day and say, hey, that looks like me, you know? That this person embodies my persona, my ideals and values. And even though I'm faking it a little bit, I myself am okay with being a little bit fake, because that whole notion of what fake and what is real, that's totally subjective. That's totally arbitrary, because we ourselves don't have maybe the finest grasp on what is real or fake. I mean, of course, with science and other new technological advancements, we can determine whether something is true or fake through, you know, actual scientific research and experiments. But on a more philosophical, rhetorical, like ethical standard,
you just spouted a bunch of words.
No, it's true. It's like,
yeah, okay.
Yeah, you get the gist.
Yeah, I get it.
You cannot truly define what is true and fake. You can only theorize that topic is equal to this idea or notion, right?
So I think that a good takeaway would be then you're redefining performativeness, right, as something more intrinsic as opposed to extrinsic.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like what you're saying, that it's first internal before it's expressed outwardly, right? And so then what?
Then what? Ooh, that's a good question. Then what?
Like, so what? What's the argument with that? You've redefined it.
Performativeness is something that is not, or should not be, listened to by somebody else, right? It's something that should be what you know true. So basically what I'm stating is, all those guys that said your performativeness, that said that to what degree is your performativeness performative, it's never been about them, it's about you. So that's really what I'm trying to say, is that you are your own truth, that you, with your own ideals and ideas and thoughts and all this fun stuff, you are the one that defines who you are as a person, not these oppressive forces online or on your real world, which is the truth with like the governments and all that stuff.
So you're saying, well, you're calling out people who call other people performative, right?
Yeah, it's not a logical, based off this assumption, way of thinking.
Yeah, like you're saying that they can't know whether they're actually being performative, right?
It's only their own provisional, or other words, limited viewing or understanding of another person as who they are through their single-side story.
That's true. I mean, the human brain does heavily operate on stereotypes, so it can be difficult to not follow those. But what you're saying is, I mean, how would you say that, how would you argue that we should get around that? Because you cannot get around the stereotyping aspect of our brains, but then what are you saying that we should do in order to, like, what is your call?
What I'm saying is this: don't view people as labels. That's it, really.
Mm.
In life, we view people with a lot of labels. Like, you see a kid who is wearing headphones, playing video games on the corner or the couch in Loyola Hall, right? What do you think he is? Like, what are the first three names that come to mind?
Uh, Nerd.
Yeah, he's a nerd. He's a loser, a geek.
Okay, well,
right?
Well, loser, you're the one who said that.
Okay. No, but still, that's the truth. People do think that, and that's prejudice, which to a degree is valid because, well, we use prejudice as to keep ourselves safe, right? But that's a whole other can of worms I'm not talking about. But really, what we can do is not view them as a label, not view the guy with glasses and who, maybe does a little bit of nerdy stuff as a nerd. Maybe just see him as his name, who he is. And still, there's a lot of stuff we can think about somebody without having to resort to such material like labels and all that stuff. What I'm trying to say here is that all people are equal. Who cares if a guy is a little bit weird or a little bit obtrusive? What really matters is that somebody is, well, nice or good or
Right. So value the personality or the character of the person over their, over
their, well, prejudice.
social status within your own taxonomy.
Yeah, the hierarchy of man in social sense is something that should be dismantled, but we cannot dismantle it, right? Because it's something so structural to our society and our understanding of what a society should be that there's no way to fill that hole back in if we just say, oh, the poor are now the rich and the rich are now the poor and all these guys are this.
So you're saying not to stop stereotyping, but to kind of to catch yourself while you're stereotyping and start stereotyping them under a different, more open-minded.
Yeah, be open-minded that these people are not merely their titles. Yeah.
So, but we're replacing the judgmental ordering force with an ordering force that, well, it still judges them, but based on their character.
Yeah, the character is.
So just essentially, just to clarify it to the audience, you're stating that judge people by their character, not by, whatever.
Whatever their performativeness may be.
Mm-hmm. So just before we close off, before we end the episode, let's just clarify what the title of the episode, when does performativeness stop being performative?
Performativeness stops being performative when you stop looking yourself through the eyes of other people, but instead through the character of your own self-actualized being. And really, you're the one who calls a stop and saying, hey, I don't like this version of me. I don't like looking up in the mirror, seeing myself look with all these weird makeup and extremities and all these other weird effigies like a labubu or two, I want to be who I want to be. And if it looks to some other people to be performative, then so be it. That's just what they think. But they don't know who one truly is. So that is where performative stops being performative. When one stops viewing themselves through the lens of social media, their parents, their teachers, siblings, friends, etc.
But they do adopt it, don't they? They do
adopt
becoming
because
what they.
You fake it till you make it, to a degree, because you start being a thing once you start acting it without thinking about doing that thing. It becomes something so inherent to your lifestyle that you don't even call it a label. You just call it common sense. You just call it the right way,
Right. So, I mean, that is especially why we should be careful on social media about the media we consume.
Because to some degree, you may take the quote-unquote black pill and, well, be a little bit rude to other people. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Thank you for your time, Jacob.
Yeah. And this is
Cubs on the mic.